Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to another Planet FPL Clash of the Correspondents. And this week, I'm delighted to be joined by our two correspondents from what was once the biggest game in the country. Is it still? Let me introduce you to our Manchester United correspondent, Gary Robinson. How are you, Gary?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. And our Arsenal correspondent, Adam Pritchard. How are you, Adam?
I'm doing very well, thank you, James.
Good. Gary, this Arsenal fixture,
Yeah.
is this it's obviously a big game for you, but does the rivalry still feel like what it did 20 years ago?
No, I don't think so. I think 20 years ago, the two best teams in the country by a mile. What did they win? 9 Premier Leagues in a row between them, I think, something like that. Two, big characters, big managers, quite different styles of football as well, which I think always hyped it up as well. Things like that. Neither of us have competed for a title for, well, I don't know, a decade or more. So I don't think so. I think it's still a big game on paper. And two, well, you've got one very good team and one team that you don't really know what you're going to get. But still two top six sides. But no, I don't think it's a huge game in that respect anymore. So I mean, but you could argue that there might never be a rivalry like that in English football again. That that 90s to early noughties, United and Arsenal, they really didn't like each other. They were so far clear of everyone else in the league. I know Leeds and Chelsea popped up at times, but society's changed. Don't the managers quite Pep and Guardiola, Pep and Klopp quite like each other, don't they? Really, their players are always hugging, things like that, which is fine. It's not a problem. That's how life's gone. But you wouldn't have got that in the United Arsenal era, would you? And I don't think you'll ever get that level of hatred and the rest of it again. So
Was it
no,
like
is
that?
the
Was it
answer.
was it was it more important going back to the late 90s and early noughties? Was it more important? I know obviously from a league position, but in terms of emotionally, was it more important to beat Arsenal than Liverpool, for example?
Yeah, I think so because if you think back then, I mean, Liverpool then were never anywhere, were they? They were a decent cup team at times, but and I know they had that little run where they'd come to Old Trafford and win 1-0 with Danny Murphy, but they were never really a challenger to Arsenal or United, and you pretty much knew at times that if you beat Arsenal in the league twice or you knocked them out of the cup, you knew that was it. Then you knew you were winning the league. Then. I remember when we went to Arsenal just after we'd won the treble, we went to Highbury in like August or September '99, and Keane got two, and we beat him 2-1. And it was like the title was done then, in all but name, because you'd already been to Highbury, you'd already beaten them there. And it was things like that. And, the FA Cup semi-final and all the massive, well, we had quite a few FA Cup semi-finals. The Invincibles team was knocked out by us in the Cup semi-final. It basically meant whoever won that match, that was it, wasn't it? That just set the tone for the season, and that won it. And yeah, so at that point, yeah, Liverpool was just, probably like we are to Liverpool now. Liverpool probably think, oh, it's Man United, oh, we really want to beat them. But if you said to Liverpool fans now, what's more important, beating Man United, or would you rather go to the Etihad and beat Guardiola's team? They'd say, no, we need to go to City and beat them because that's what's going to dictate our title. Beating United is just bragging rights with your mates type thing. Liverpool don't care about beating United now, and I think that was probably it, just in reverse in the 90s.
No, fair. Adam, how big was it for you? Because it was real hatred, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was sort of a little bit younger when the kind of real intensity of the rivalry was happening, but my first kind of real kind of crystal clear memory of Arsenal winning something was the 2005 FA Cup, and that was obviously against Man United. And I
Yeah, he's
there's
shaking his head because he's no idea how Arsenal won that particular day.
No, that was madness. That.
but like a lot of the kind of iconic Arsenal moments that I have kind of in my mind and sort of are told amongst Arsenal fans are from games against Man United. Obviously, you've got the kind of iconic image in the tunnel with like Roy Keane and Vieira. You've got Martin Keown celebrating in Van Nistelrooy's face. You've got Wenger kind of remonstrating on the touchline. You've got the pizza thrown by Fabregas. So there are so many kind of like quite iconic moments that spring to mind when you think of the rivalry. But just in terms of where it is now, I think it's probably, yeah, it is like Gary was saying, it's a sign of how football's changed, where rivalries like that don't really kind of, certainly in English football, it doesn't feel like they exist anymore. But I think it's also definitely a sign of kind of how the two clubs have fallen from those great heights.
It's interesting. You mentioned a lot of off-field. I'm thinking about like Overmars and Wiltord's goals at Old Trafford, Giggs's goal in the semi-final, the two King goals that you already mentioned at Highbury, the 4-2, the John O'Shea chip.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some brilliant games between the two teams.
There was a great 1-1 when the season we won the treble. That 1-1 at Old Trafford was unbelievable.
Oh yeah,
as well.
and Nelka
in
and
the pissing down rain,
scored, or Cole, I think.
Yeah, York missed a penalty and Cole scored, didn't he?
That's right.
Yeah.
And the pitch was terrible, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely lashed it down. Yeah, but that was a great game, that.
They often were. I mean, that semi-final in '99 is one of the best games of football I've ever seen. It was just two teams at their absolute pinnacle of their powers, and it obviously could have gone either way. Adam, you mentioned obviously the two teams have dropped off. Your 5 wins, you winning this title, mate? Or do you need the big Norwegian up front?
Yeah, no, I don't. I haven't even dared to look at when we play City because I'm already terrified of when we have to play.
Gameweek 12, I'll save you the trouble.
Oh God, yeah, I'll be having nightmares until then. No, I mean obviously we're not winning the title. I think when I look at the table, the biggest thing that I'm focused on is the gap to Chelsea. I see we've got a pretty hefty advantage over them already, and I think, okay, well, it looks like, whereas before I thought, yeah, we're probably going to finish 5th. Now I'm thinking, okay, we're certainly in. It would be hard to say we're not in pole position for 4th, or certainly top 4 at this moment. I think we all expect, perhaps incorrectly, I guess only time will tell. I think we all expect Liverpool to kind of get their act together, even if their midfield is looking a little bit ropey. I think we kind of expect Spurs to improve in performances, and they've still been managing to get results. And I think everyone expects Arsenal to drop off at some point. So yeah, I don't think. Obviously, we're not going to win the title. You don't need me to tell you that.
No, well, look, you're top, mate. I do realize there's 33 games to go, but at the moment you're top. Should we have expected this though, with the fixtures you've had? I know you weren't confident going to Palace on opening day, and a lot of that was probably quite psychological because what's happened there and evening games in the past and stuff. But having won that, surely on paper you looked at the next 4 and went, "We're winning them."
Yeah, no, I think you can say that now, but I mean, think about where we were pre-season. I don't think anyone was. I think maybe people were a little bit worried about Leicester, but I don't think anyone.
The pre-season where you beat Chelsea 4-0.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. It's like when you think, okay, we've won the first 5 games of the season, and I know pre-season doesn't really mean anything, but we haven't lost a game. We didn't lose any of our pre-season games, and we were scoring plenty in those as well. But onto the kind of expectation going into the season, I don't think it was unrealistic because Villa had just signed Carlos as a centre-back, and they were looking like strengthening really well. I think Casamiro was widely regarded as a very good signing for their midfield. Like I was saying, I don't think everybody expected Leicester to be this bad. I think people were kind of worried about them a little bit, but nobody expected them to be the walkover that game ended up being. And ironically, after Palace, probably Fulham was the toughest game we had, where people probably thought we'd have the easiest time. So yeah, it has definitely been a kind fixture run for sure.
Is it still? Do you look at United as part of that this coming Sunday?
I look at United as, this is going to sound disrespectful, and I don't mean it to be. I look at it as on par with that Palace opening day game. More so because I think Palace are a really, really well coached side, and I think going away to them on the opening evening was always going to be a very difficult test. And I think going to Old Trafford, Arsenal have always had this ridiculous record at or maybe in more recent times, going to Old Trafford where we should win and somehow contrive to lose or draw. So I think there's that kind of psychological element to going there that we still need to overcome. But I mean, on paper, I would have to say, yeah, I should be going there expecting to win.
Yeah, I think just off the top of my head, I remember a goal Robin van Persie scored for United under David Moyes, and they were on the floor, and you were playing well. And last year they were on the floor when they beat you 3-2 as well, basically. Why does that happen? It does feel like that. It has got that sense on United on the floor at the moment. You've recovered a bit, Gary.
You got the two when Rashford got two on his debut and Arsenal were going for the league. And
you had half a team out as well.
Half a team, yeah. When you look at the 11 that day, it was unbelievable. I think we were 3-1 up after an hour. Yeah, it's been a constant theme, that, hasn't it?
Why does that happen, Adam? I mean, it doesn't necessarily got any bearing on now, but obviously Arteta was manager when you went there in December and a midweek last year.
Yeah, I think there's so many different factors, and it feels like kind of trite and easy and to say it's a psychological factor. But I think there's a lot of experience that comes with it and a lot of kind of intangibles that it's sometimes hard to quantify. But now Arsenal have got players who are not only kind of used to winning in this team, because obviously we're on a good run at the moment, but you've got players like Zinchenko and Jesus who are used to winning outside of the Arsenal environment. So they know what it takes to repeat the kind of form that Arsenal are showing at the moment. Whereas a lot of players who have only ever played for Arsenal will obviously never really have experienced a run like we're going on at the moment, especially at the start of the season. So I think there's a lot of that kind of inexperience of expectation that has played into it in the past. And also, I mean, I think this team is just so much better than any of those other sides. Even if we go into this weekend with potentially a few injuries in key positions, I think the squad is certainly deeper and stronger than it has been for quite some time. Whereas previously, it felt like even though we had depth, none of the depth was very, very good. It was like we had a lot of first team. We had like 3 first team right backs at the start of last season, but that was Tomiyasu, Callum Chambers, and Cedric. Whereas Tomiyasu can't even get a start at the moment. We've got Kieran Tierney's only been able to play now because Zinchenko's injured. Smith Rowe can't get into the starting team, and Nketiah can't get into the starting team. So yeah, we've definitely got a lot of strength in depth, which I think kind of breeds healthy competition, which should hopefully spur this side on this weekend.
Gary, where do United sit now? I mean, I think if I'd had you on 2 weeks ago after Brentford, probably would have been throwing shit at the screen. But you've obviously had 2 decent performances and 2 good wins since. Where do you see United at now? Is it not as... Were you not on the floor as bad as most people after Brentford? Or are you not as high now as perhaps some other people
are? Yeah, I'm not that. I'm still not that high on us after the last 2 wins. I mean, the last 2 wins were, well, obviously very much needed, but they were the result of digging in, great determination, and all that kind of thing. The actual quality is still not there. I mean, we're still not good in possession. We were all right in the final, against Liverpool especially. We were all right in the final third at times, but there's still no. I mean, it's only 4 games, but Ten Hag doesn't seem to have been able to implement any sort of possession-based style, really. I know we had quite a lot of the ball against Brentford, but we were 4-0 down after half an hour, and that. So. But again, I mean, against Liverpool, and I know Liverpool are, different league to us really, but there was no attempt to get on the ball and play, and that's even with playing Eriksen and Fernandes in midfield. So that's a worry. But it's only been 4 games, and given the first 2, they probably thought this isn't the time to implement, a midfield possession style game. Let's just get through them. But I think they deserve a lot of credit for getting through those last 2 matches, because given how that Brentford game went, and we've seen a lot of that group of players when it goes wrong there, the roof just caves in. And honestly, I was honestly expecting us to get beat by Liverpool, and then you were thinking Ten Hag could be on the chopping block here. So I think they all deserve a lot of credit for getting through those 2 matches and grinding out 2 wins. But you know, if we've got any aspirations of finishing the top 4 or winning the Europa League, we've got to start get better on the ball and become a proper dominant team as much as we can. We can't be playing reactive football and digging in for the next 8 months.
How do you feel about Ten Hag now?
I said in pre-season, if he starts with Harry Maguire as captain, they should sack him on the spot. He's finally realised, it's taken him 2 matches that he's lost. He seems to have realised that you cannot play modern football, and especially the way he'll want to play it, and you can't be a top side. You can't have that with Maguire, Luke Shaw and Cristiano Ronaldo in your team. You might be able to carry one of them if the rest of them are all right, but those 3 especially, they need so much protection from other people. They need so many other people doing their hard work for them. It just doesn't work. And I know people say, Ronaldo gets 18 goals a season and things like that, but he needs too much other people to do too much work for him. Maguire and Shaw, since the Euros especially, have been dreadful. And I know people are quick to stick up for Maguire, especially. He has been dreadful. There's no way around that. He was all right, and he was a decent player for his first couple of years, and he might have the odd bad game. He has been dreadful since the Euros, and the idea that he could come into this season as even been in the starting 11, let alone captain, was laughable. And Ten Hag really should have. I suspect Ten Hag knew that deep down, and I wonder if he thought, I can't come in all guns blazing. But that's what he needed to do, because if he'd have done that, we might have, well, who knows? We might still got beat by Brighton and Brentford, but we probably wouldn't have done.
But he hasn't let it go on forever, has he? He's gone.
No,
right
yeah.
enough,
So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So he does deserve credit for doing it. And he's done it for the Liverpool game, which was a massive call for him, because he must have thought, oh, I want to do this, but can't be doing it for the Liverpool game. So he does deserve a lot of credit for doing it, but it was plain to see for everyone that he could have done it in pre-season and set his stall out. But yeah, he's done it now, so yeah, we don't need to go on about it too much. But how vital might those 6 points that we dropped in the first 2 end up being? And if it ends up that this team that we're playing with now, and he sort of sets upon a decent 11 and a decent system, and we go on a bit of a run, or and we finish 5th by 2 points or whatever, it's should we have lost to Brighton? And then Brighton and Brentford are decent sides, but you can't be losing to both of them. You can lose to one of them in isolation, but to lose to both of them in a row when you're trying to get in the top 4 is just not good enough, is it? But
Adam, you lost both those fixtures last year. My team picked up 1 point from those 2 fixtures last year without scoring. So I don't know. Maybe Brighton's away record actually is outstanding, isn't it?
Brighton's. Yeah, I'm saying losing those games, but to lose both of them in a row. I mean, you're saying Arsenal lost. That's what cost Arsenal the top 4, isn't it?
But that's exactly what we had. We lost at home to Brighton in game week 33.
Yeah.
And then drew 0-0 away to Brentford in game week 34. And we should have lost.
Yeah.
So we didn't score in either of them.
I think there's a bit of a different kind of considerations to be taken into those. I think with United, they didn't just lose those games. They were comprehensively beaten and almost embarrassed a little bit to the point where people were starting to sort of feel a little bit sorry for United fans, which is, and I can say this as an Arsenal fan, when someone else feels sorry for you, that is the worst thing. I'd rather you take the piss out of me relentlessly.
I don't believe you felt sorry for them for a second, mate.
No, I was loving it, but I mean, other people were. And Arsenal had injuries when we lost to kind of Brentford at the start of last season, and then obviously losing to Brighton was uninspiring. But yeah, I think there was a lot of kind of the environment in which United lost those games.
Yeah, of course. The manner of the United defeat, the first half against Brighton just got completely outplayed. And similarly, I mean, against Brentford was
laughable,
that as
wasn't
low as it's ever been, Gary? That game.
Well, I don't know. I mean, how do you quantify it? I mean, getting beaten by Brighton 4-0 at the end of last season was a bit of an eye opener, and Liverpool 5-0 and City 6-1. So I don't know how you quantify it. I mean, but it was certainly
Tottenham
in terms
6-1.
Tottenham 6-1.
I'll just get one in.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah. But yeah, I think in terms of a lot of those previous tweets mentioned, that was when we were still second, first, third in the league type thing. I mean, that one there, the Brighton one at the end of last season where you thought, we'll look to finish sixth there. And that one, you just thought, is this what this team is now? And is it, and like I said earlier, I honestly thought the roof was going to cave in then, because that group of players have proven that they haven't got a lot of resolve about them, but they dragged it from somewhere. So
I think that the Southampton result was decent as well. You've seen that. Look what Chelsea did there on Tuesday night, and the pitch was difficult to play on for both you and Chelsea. So I think that was just like a go there, win, get on with it. Do you feel in a way, off the back of the Liverpool result, that having Arsenal next at home is better than having, say, Fulham coming your way, for example, in the sense that go with that same intensity again, and you might win again? Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, it gives them a chance to hopefully keep that momentum, depending on what happens tonight, obviously. But I think if they play like they played against Liverpool, I think they've got a good chance of result. But it's whether they can do it.
So you mentioned it. I've part forgot. You obviously got Leicester tonight before Arsenal. What's a good return from these two games?
4 points.
Which one drawing?
Well, I think we've got to win tonight. I think Leicester, Leicester are dreadful, aren't they? Let's make no bones about that. So I think we've got to try and win there tonight, and then if you win tonight, get yourself to 7 points in three, and then at that point, 9 points in three. Then at that point, I don't think a draw on Sunday becomes a bad result. So yeah, I don't think we could afford to lose another game.
Well, it's worth saying the win tonight would take you above Liverpool and Chelsea.
Yeah, title charges on.
Mate, how disastrous has it truly been?
No, it hasn't been. If we win tonight, it hasn't been, has it? But if that's the flip of it. Is if we lose tonight, then where are we?
I hear you.
Then you go into the Arsenal game on 6 points from 4. Probably, I don't know. By the time it gets to Sunday 4 o'clock, we might be, I don't know, 15th or something. So it's
Adam, if United bring that intensity against yourselves like they brought against Liverpool, how concerning is that? Or do you, in a weird way, think you're better equipped to deal with it?
I think we're better equipped to deal with it than we would have been in the past. But I also think a lot of that, obviously, I thought that was like night and day, that United performance from what they've really been in any of their other games this season. A lot of that would have been the kind of emotion around that, not only the fact that it was Liverpool, but also the kind of knowledge of the fan protests going on as well. But I thought Liverpool that day they were really quite poor. Like,
they were dreadful, weren't they?
Their midfield was almost non-existent, and there was so many clear avenues of attack that United could just like repeat, and they were getting joy all the time in behind Alexander-Arnold. And I don't know if Arsenal have such a kind of, at least I haven't seen so far this season, us be exposed repeatedly in the same way. And I think that made it very easy for United to say, right, okay, we can set up in this particular way. We're going to be quite solid. We're going to have fast runners pressing, and we know that we can just get in behind effectively with one pass through the midfield and expose Alexander-Arnold on Liverpool's right-hand side. And I don't think Arsenal have that kind of clear gap in their team. And it's easy to forget, but Liverpool had quite a few shots that night. I think they had sort of north of sort of 15 or so. So I don't think United can allow this Arsenal attack to have that much or to have that many efforts on their goal.
You mentioned midfield being a problem for Liverpool that night. I think we could obviously all rightly see that. Is there a case it's a problem for you on Sunday as well, Adam?
Yeah, it certainly could be in terms of personnel. Yeah, so obviously we're missing kind of our first choice holding midfielder. Odegaard looked okay, but he took some absolute kicks off a Villa team who seem intent to injure him last night as we're recording. He was walking around the pitch afterwards, so I think he'll be okay, fingers crossed. But yeah, so then we could be missing potentially our first choice holding midfielder and our first choice kind of creative player on the right-hand side of that three. And
is Lokonga ready for this? I think it's probably the big question, isn't it? If he has to play.
Yeah, I thought he put in a pretty good performance against Villa. I thought he was quite good. Obviously, he's not really there in terms of the same ability to kind of tackle and move the ball forward quickly, but he has got a decent passing range and he can keep it ticking over. I think in a weird way, obviously El Neni looks like he's out for quite some time. I think I would prefer Lokonga to play in this game just because he helps us keep the tempo up a little bit more, whereas El Neni, although he is very secure in possession and kind of quite a good moderating influence at time, he can stifle our ability to quickly progress through the centre from back to front. So I think having Lokonga in there could kind of help us maintain this current streak we've got of like being quite relentless in the opening sort of 20-25 minutes of matches. And at the end of the day, you never know if he's ready until you try it. And it's probably no better time for him to be tested in that kind of environment if you factor in both sort of United's relatively difficult start to the season and Arsenal's obviously quite positive one.
Has anyone ever scored against your team and then signed for you the next day, Adam?
I'm not really sure. I'm taking this as the Douglas Luiz.
Yeah, we should timestamp it. It's about 11:30 in the morning. We do understand in the last hour that Arsenal have made a bid for Aston Villa's Douglas Luiz. I think that's probably more off the El Neni injury more than anything. I do know that Lee Jackson very much tells us he's not really a sitting holding midfield player. It's probably more of the Xhaka ilk, if you will. Would you be happy with that sort of signing?
Well, I know we were linked with him, I think it was last summer, and he moved from City to Villa. And so Arteta, I think, would have worked with him or at least known about him from his time in City. And yeah, I do think we need an extra body in that midfield, but the problem is that there have been lots of reports about Arsenal now being linked with lots of different players. Like I think we're linked with a midfielder from Brazil.
Yeah,
we were tentatively linked with Paredes as well. There's also the Tielemans links that don't seem to be going away. So at this stage, if we're going to sign a player, which I don't think is guaranteed by any stretch, it looks more likely that it will be a kind of midfielder to either be the 6 or the 8 in that central three, than it will be another winger.
And for yourself, Gary, obviously confirmed this morning the sign of Anthony from Ajax. Where do you see him fitting in and how quickly?
Yeah, I mean, you would have thought, given Ten Hag's worked with him and the money they've spent, that they're not going to ease him in for too long. Probably going to play wide right, so I don't know what that means for Rashford and Martial. I think Sancho will stay on the left, and then I think it'd be Rashford and Martial vying for that space in the middle of the three. Yeah, difficult to know really. I mean, given that he's coming from the Dutch league, which I mean, I can't think of the last player who came from the Dutch league straight to the Premier League and was a success, especially an attacking player.
I'd like to just jump in and point out Bundesliga tax and Erling Haaland at this stage. Carry on.
No, I know, but Erling Haaland looks like he might be a once in a, once in a generation type player, isn't he? I don't think
a prototype, a super soldier, or something that
Yeah,
we've yet to
yeah.
see.
And and I think even and if there's Bundesliga tax, then I don't know what the Eredivisie tax is. That must be even higher. So
Would Van Nistelrooy not come from there, mate?
yeah, well, when was that? It was 21 years ago we bought him. So that's what I'm saying. It's a long time, isn't it? So yeah, because I mean Anthony's goals and assist record on paper doesn't look that reassuring. So we'll have to see. You don't know. I would assume somebody might come too early for him, but we'll have to see. But yeah, I can't imagine they spent £100 million to sit him on the bench for a long time.
There's an obvious follow-up question here from the things that you said, Gary. So you're saying, Anthony, with the money you've spent, not necessarily immediately, but is probably going to go in on the right of the team. You're saying maybe Sancho to the left, Martial and Rashford competing up front. Have you forgotten someone?
Well, yeah. I mean, it doesn't look like he's going to leave, does it? So, but yeah, he could do with finding himself a move today if he can. But
we are referring to Ronaldo, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I don't think Ten Hag wants him in that 11 anyway, and his attitude and his behaviour doesn't seem to have been that great either. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if Ronaldo's going to sit there on 500 grand a week and be happy to play in the Europa League, but I think might be where it is for now because I don't see how you have the two performances you've had the last 2 weeks, like I said, digging in and
doesn't work with him, does it? It's not even a slight on him. He's how old is he? 37, 38?
30, yeah, he's 38 next.
He's
next
still
February,
a phenomenon, but it's just not going to work in the way that you want to play, mate.
No, it's not. It's not a criticism of him of his career or anything like that. But it's been obvious. It's been obvious since we signed him. I know people go, he got 18 goals and rah. But what about the rest of the team? It's not just about can you get one player to 18 league goals, but people gone about that 18 league goal return like it was, loads of players get 18 goals, don't they? It's not unheard of, is it? So, yeah, what I don't understand is he must have known at the end of last season that he didn't fancy the Europa League, etc. Ten Hag must have known that he's not really going to fit in my system. I can't for the life of me believe that if they started on this last May, that they couldn't have found a club for him by now. But
down to Mendes and stuff, isn't it? He's got enough contacts.
Yeah,
maybe no one wants him. I've heard some bizarre story about Atletico Madrid looking to move Griezmann on because they owe Barcelona £40 million if he plays another half hour or something. And shipping him out might mean a late move for Ronaldo. Napoli's been mentioned. Sporting Lisbon's been mentioned. He's not going to go to Saudi Arabia, is he? So, but I also feel like, as much as I feel you're better off without, I'm kind of reluctant to see him sit on the bench for you for the next 4 months. He doesn't feel right. It feels like he should just piss off somewhere else and play football to me.
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We should have found him a club because they should have got to last May, had the conversation and said, right, that's fine. Thanks for everything, Ronaldo. Put a little video up saying, well done, all these highlights, and found him another club. And the other thing, how much would it? He's on $500,000 a week-ish, I think.
Yeah,
he's only got a year left on his deal, so probably can't pay that off for him. But I'm sure they could have come to some sort of arrangement and said, look, let's just terminate your contract. Here's however much of it, and you're free to go and find any club you want. Who'll pay you whatever money you want. Because we wouldn't have got much of a transfer fee for him, I don't think.
Nah.
So all of that would be irrelevant. We'd have freed up $500,000 in wages that could have gone towards someone else. I just find it bizarre that between us and Mendes and Ronaldo, he hasn't been able to find himself a club.
To be fair, he sounds like he's trying his best. If you read the reports, he's offering himself out to every single club in Europe. I just don't think anyone really wants him or can afford him.
Well, this is it. Is he? Sorry, I'm offering it, but if he's not going to, how much is he lowering his wage demands? Because even if he's asking for 200,000 a week, which is 40% of what he's on now, even that, I mean, would you even pay him 200,000 a week? I don't know.
I think look, he can do commercial good for someone, like extremely good.
Yeah, he can. Yeah, but at the expense of what? I think it just goes back
No, I
to
get that. I mean, like
who can,
commercially, in terms of what you spent the transfer fee, was it 20 million or so to buy him
something
back?
like that.
And you
Yeah.
basically made that money in 2 weeks
Oh yeah,
because of
that's
him.
yeah. But then you could argue that it's cost of Champions League football. So
Yeah, he's not solely responsible for that, but I
no, he's
think
not. He's not solely
as
responsible for it, but he's
I said
one
to
of
you
the
in the
big
summer
drivers.
that I thought that if you could get him out, it would instantly make you a top four challenger again. And I think it's going to be really difficult to balance having him in the squad and not in the team because he's obviously got a voice. That would be the concern.
Yeah, well, I think it sounds like some of the players in the dressing room are sort of Team Ronaldo, and some of them aren't. So that'd be a worry. He doesn't strike me as the type to be a Paul Scholes or a Gary Neville type, sort of sitting on the bench 4 weeks in 5 and being a good mentor and I'll get prepared for the Europa League in 3 weeks. I'll be a super sub. He doesn't strike me that'll be his bag. So yeah, it could be interesting times ahead. I mean, we don't know. This might look silly, but I can't see him getting a club today. It just seems too late now for him, but you never know.
Yeah, that might look stupid in 12 hours.
Yeah.
Adam, talking of stupid.
Oh, God.
Yeah, you know what's coming, don't you?
Yeah.
So, I think the biggest respondees to any Correspondent Week podcast was how was the Arsenal correspondent not starting the FPL season with Gabriel Jesus. Adam did tell me he took a massive hit to rectify that. How good has he been for you, mate? And how silly do you feel about that now?
Yeah, in hindsight, it doesn't look the best, does it? Taking a -8 after the Leicester game to bring him in. He's been amazing. I think I even said it on the podcast. I wouldn't be surprised if he got like sort of 15 goals and like sort of 12 or 13 assists or whatever, because he looked so good in pre-season and his understanding looked there already. The thing that has impressed me most is his strength. Like he's not stocky, but he's got really good center of gravity and quite clearly a good core stability.
Yeah, that goal against Bournemouth, it should have been his assist, wasn't it? Odegaard's first goal summed it up, didn't it?
Yeah,
it was peak Jesus. Yeah,
it was amazing, and he did the same against Leicester, where he just rolled Johnny Evans, kind of left him for dead, and he did it a couple of times against Villa last night against Konsa and Mings, where he's just able to hold defenders off seemingly with ease and bring the ball down all in one move. And his work rate is incredible. Guardiola described him as the best pressing forward in the world, and you can really see what he means when he says that. He's so energetic. He'll occasionally pop up kind of defending in our own half, and then on the same counter attack he'll be leading the charge forwards. And that the concern that a lot of outsiders had when we signed him is like, oh, well, he isn't a proper centre forward. He's always played on the wing. Will he be okay in the middle? But I think that's actually playing into Arsenal's kind of hands, really, because it means that him, Saka, and Martinelli are able to swap positions so often that opposition defenders have a real difficult time tracking him. And I think, I could go on about him for ages. He's just been so impressive, and he's already a part of the leadership group at Arsenal, which I think shows that he's obviously quite a mature player behind the scenes as well, which hopefully will be a good influence on the likes of Saka and Martinelli going forward.
I reflect on this interview he gave. Most will remember it at Man City last year, where there was a game where I think he maybe had 3 assists or something quite early in the season, where he played on the right wing and his performance was really lauded. And he said in the interview afterwards, he said, I'm not a striker. I want to play on the right. And a lot of people, I think, got stuck with that. In hindsight, that was just a barefaced fucking lie, wasn't
it? Yeah, I mean, he's got all the attributes to be a striker. I think but I mean, then again, he's perfectly good on the wing as well. I think I think with him and Zinchenko, and it kind of happens with a lot of Man City players, is that they can sometimes get subsumed by the environment around them. Like Guardiola can be quite a suffocating influence. And obviously, 99.9% of the time, that's a brilliant thing because he's obviously an amazing manager and a great tactician. But sometimes you don't get to see the true nature of a player unless or until they're outside that environment. And you've seen a little bit of the kind of inverse of that with Jack Grealish, where he was obviously such a kind of effervescent player for Villa, being able to dictate the tempo and the play of an entire side. And he doesn't really have that freedom when he's playing for Man City. So you're seeing a little bit of a kind of muted version of him on the pitch. And I think we're seeing the opposite of that with Jesus and Zinchenko now at Arsenal.
What's the news on Zinchenko injury status?
Well, he was in contention for the Villa game last night as we're recording, and obviously if you saw him running down the touchline and celebrating the winner we had against Fulham, he's clearly not a long-term injury. So I think maybe it was a case of Arteta and the medical staff thinking we could risk it for Aston Villa, but we probably have enough to win the Villa game without him. So I would be pretty hopeful that he'll be okay to start at the weekend for sure.
Would you want him to start rather than think? Would you want him to? Do you want him to come into the team for Kieran Tierney?
Well, this is the thing. I don't, even if it's not for Kieran Tierney, because I think in this game, especially, Tierney's kind of more traditional defensive fullback abilities, and I think he's a much more comfortable one-on-one defender. That could be useful with the kind of threat that United will look to offer. I wonder if this might actually be a game to put him in midfield, to put him as the 6. And even if he's not a kind of physical 6 like you would expect and like a lot of other teams use, he is at least used to playing in that kind of defensive role and then transitioning forward into attack. He can bring the ball forward both with his feet and kind of through his passing range. So I sort of wonder if this might be the game where we look to use him there, if of course he's fully fit.
Big call to play in and around Bruno Fernandes's area. Another factor, obviously, off of Ronaldo, Gary, is Bruno playing better?
No, I don't think so. I don't think he was great on Saturday. He scored an absolutely unbelievable finish for the goal. But other than that, I don't think he was that impressive. But and against Liverpool, again, like everyone, he was busy and he was up for it, and all that kind of thing was there. But there wasn't many obvious moments of quality from him. But I think Ronaldo does help him. I think it makes him feel like the main man. I think it plays to his ego a bit, and from a tactical point of view, I think it means there's more room for him to make them sort of runs into the penalty area, which he just doesn't seem to do it as much when Ronaldo's there. But yeah, I don't think aside from that goal, I don't think he's hit the heights that we know he can yet.
Okay, I wonder if it might come again though.
No, it might do. Yeah, I mean, he's always been quite even when he was the best fantasy asset in the game, you would watch him for 60 minutes and think, who is this guy? And before you knew it, he's got 2 assists, a penalty and a free kick, and it was, so he's an odd one that he can play quite badly and get you some actual attacking returns. So yeah,
guess he'll be back on pens now, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I would have thought so. Yeah, there's no one else there who'll take him off him. So yeah, you'd have thought it'd be on pens.
And that's never gone badly against Arsenal at all, has it?
You can. Yeah. Talk to me about Gabriel Martinelli, Adam. What level is he at now?
I think I think whilst maybe at the start of the season he was in, a lot of people were thinking, okay, he's going to be in the Arsenal team because Smith Rowe is just coming back from an injury. His fitness needs to be managed because he's had a lot of injuries in the past. But when Smith Rowe is back fully fit, there's going to be that kind of element of rotation risk there. And I think his performances at the start of the season have just seen him kind of continue this upward trajectory that he's really been on since he kind of first broke into the Arsenal side, bar that lengthy spell of kind of on the sidelines he had. Yeah, so I don't really think he's one I would worry about losing his place due to form. Certainly, if any game I thought he might miss, it was against Aston Villa. I thought he looked a little bit off it against Fulham, and I thought maybe there was a little bit of fatigue creeping into that. His set piece delivery that had been so good this season was kind of a little bit average against Fulham. So I thought, well, maybe now's a good time to give Smith Rowe a game against Aston Villa, a side who he usually does well against, and have Martinelli refreshed for the Man United game. But I think the fact that Martinelli started against Aston Villa is a sign of the faith that Arteta has in him, and he's turning into such a threatening, almost quite an intimidating player. I don't know what the opposition view of him is as like a fan perspective, but I can't help but think he looks quite intimidating when he runs with the ball, because he can go outside and in, he can beat you for pace. He's quite comfortable to kind of play it off to a player inside him and then make that bursting run in behind, or he can kind of cut inside on his right foot and have an effort at goal. He's developing a lot of facets to his game now.
He's only missed 16 minutes so far as well. That's interesting. He's completed 90 minutes 4 times, actually. 34 FPL points so far. I take it you own him, Adam.
Yeah.
Well done. Congratulations.
Yeah, I got that one right. Yeah, no, I think...
No, you actually, in fairness, you were massively high on him in pre-season, mate.
Yeah, I was. So I got one right and one spectacularly wrong. So I even out, I guess.
Who's the third Arsenal asset that you run?
I don't... So I own Xhaka, and I think that's justifiable. I know it seems...
He's got 24 points. It's completely reasonable.
And even when he's not returning, so like in the Fulham game, for example, he's still making those breaks into the box. His positioning is really advanced. And I know a lot of people will think, oh, but it's Granit Xhaka, which if you think that, I can't say anything against it. Because I've been on this podcast, James, more often than not, kind of saying that I don't really think he's a particularly good player. But his role has completely changed this season. And he's getting into the box so frequently that even if he's not the one kind of having the efforts on goal, he's making the sideways pass to somebody who is quite often. And I think it's resulted in a couple of assists. He's been making a knockdown to somebody off a cross or off a corner, who then goes on to have a decent effort on goal. And I think he got given the assist against Villa as well for Jesus' goal.
No,
he didn't, but it was his deflected cross that that Jesus kind of tapped in. So yeah, and at 5 million, there aren't really a lot of assets around.
No, I mean, to be honest, he probably is the best 5 million midfielder in the game. You just wouldn't. You could only really make the case, I think, like you, to have him if you've got Martinelli as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. I wouldn't go for him over Martinelli at all. And even it would be a pretty difficult decision to go for him over a defender. It's just, I'm still a little bit worried at our ability to effectively force goals on ourselves. Like, I look at the goals we've conceded so far this season. The one against Fulham was obviously a mistake from Gabriel. The one against Aston Villa, I think should have been a foul on the goalkeeper. At least, I mean, that's my perspective. I know a lot of people think otherwise, but he was being blocked off. So.
Gary, have you got that violin there, mate?
Well, I think
I don't know what's happened to you, Adam. Over the last year, you and referees, mate. Honestly, you've turned into a right gooner, mate. And I always thought of you different. Every week now, ref this, ref that, mate. Have a look at yourself, honestly.
I know it's a bit. I think there's a wider thing about refereeing that probably isn't for this podcast around the new kind of higher threshold for review, and they're letting more stuff go, and I just think it's dangerous, really. And it's not just in the Arsenal games. It happened in the Crystal Palace game with the Haaland high boot on Anderson. It's happening in quite a lot of matches where it happened in the Man United Southampton game as well, with hatchet man McTominay just going around kicking people for fun. But yeah, no, I think that aside, I think a lot of the goals we've conceded have been of our own volition rather than kind of the opposition outplaying us. So I think that's why I'm kind of a little bit less comfortable with having an Arsenal defender at the moment.
I'm off to Google volition. Gary, what 3 Arsenal players do you own at the moment?
I've only got 2, unfortunately.
You've only got 2?
Yeah, so I've got Saliba and Jesus. Yeah, my only route to Martinelli would be either to wildcard or to sell Diaz or De Bruyne. So, yeah, and I might have missed the boat on that one now, I think.
Okay. But Saliba, though, Adam's fantastic, isn't he?
Yeah. No, he's great. I think I mentioned he might be the one that I could see breaking into the kind of previously established back four at the start of the season, and he's just been so good. He's a real physical specimen. He's very tall. I think he might only be 6'2", but somehow he comes across taller than that, and he looks very strong. He's got a very kind of quick stride as well, which is obviously helping in the recovery speed in the defensive line. And he's quite comfortable on the ball as well. Obviously, with the goal that we conceded against Fulham, Gabriel just doesn't look too great on the ball. And Mitrovic
is Saliba ahead of him? Like, if White goes back to centre back, is there a chance that Gabriel comes out of the team? Are we actually looking at the point now with Saliba? Because he's always been will he stay in the team? Will Tomiyasu come back in and then White goes back inside? Is he first choice centre back now?
Him and White have been the best performing of those three so far this season. It's just Arteta he likes a lot of left-footed players in his team. So I don't know how much he'll kind of how much he values that compared to the fact that the other two have been better than him. But I think Saliba would be okay on the left-hand side. I don't think it would be too much of a problem. But yeah, Gabriel is the one who's been slightly off it at the start of this season, and even Saliba's own goal against Leicester, which was slightly comical in the way it happened, but he recovered from that very well, I thought. And I think the crowd supporting him in the stadium, like chanting his name straight afterwards, is a sign that I think people have got a lot of affection for him already, and they're willing to show quite a lot of patience with him.
Mr. Ramsdale to finish up as well, Adam, for you. Any concerns at the moment?
It's a little bit, but in the way he's like a better version of Pickford, really. Like,
oh, come on,
he will have. No, I don't. I think he's a good player. I think he's a good goalkeeper, but I mean that he will have those kind of erratic moments where.
No, sorry, I was saying I don't think he's a better version of Pickford. I think he's a.
Oh, really?
No, I think Pickford's a better keeper than him.
The England team tells us that, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, perhaps. I think he'll, but in the kind of same mold as Pickford, who, regardless of who you think is better or not, they both have that kind of crazy streak in them where
I agree with.
You never feel 100% comfortable when they're your goalkeeper. But I think a part of that I've kind of learned to live with, because more often than not, his shot stopping is very, very good, and his distribution is excellent as well. It was the one thing that when he went through that kind of bad patch towards the end of last season, it was the one thing that kind of concerned me most, was his passing was off it quite a lot, but his distribution at the start of the season has been very good, and it's helping us launch attacks very, very quickly. So
he seems to be quite a leader as well, doesn't he? I think the rest of the team like him, even if he seems to be quite a popular character in the group, doesn't he? And quite an important character, even if he's got his flaws. Which is because some goalkeepers aren't like that, are they? Some goalkeepers are quite timid, aren't they? And
Are you referring to your own, Gary?
well, I wasn't going to bring ours into it, but yeah, you know, for all Ramsdale's flaws, which you know, and he can be a liability, can't he? But he seems to be very popular, and he's one of them who gets the crowd on his side and seems to, you know, really go after his defenders and that kind of thing. So I think he probably makes up for his moments of madness, I would assume.
Yeah, no, he's a great character, and he comes across as a really, really good guy as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I think perhaps it's obviously he started last season so well, and everyone was like, "Oh, he should be England's number one straight away. He's looking really, really good." And I think, as is often the case, he's somewhere in between the highs and the lows. He's not as good as we all thought he probably was at the start of last season, and equally, he's not as bad as some people thought he looked at the end of last season. So yeah, I think there's not really any real concerns.
Yeah, it's a position where you get judged so bad. I was in the away end at West Ham last night, and I'm not going to say that Hugo Lloris's performance was great, but you'd have thought we had a clowning goal the way people were going on in the away end. So everything's scrutinised. I agree with you, Adam. I think his distribution is really important to you, and it's probably kind of around about the best under sort of Edison and Allison, to be honest. But there is definitely a concern, I think, on some of his shot stopping. I think like the Maddison goal against Leicester, like he can't let that in, mate. Even the Saliba goal, I think that's more on him than Saliba. Last night on the corner, okay, yeah, you think it's a foul, but I'd want my goalkeeper to be a lot stronger.
Can I just say, I don't think it's a foul. I think according to the rules or the laws, it's a foul. I agree. I think what you want your goalkeeper to be doing there is taking man and ball, really. You want him to be tall enough to climb over the midfielder and grab it, or at least kind of palm it away.
Punch it.
Yeah, exactly. And
he's nowhere near it.
No, that is concerning, given what I think a lot of people criticised Leno for when he was Arsenal goalkeeper, was not commanding his area. And I think Ramsdale certainly brings the commanding of the defence, and he's a very vocal character. But whether or not we're kind of at the commanding the area stage is definitely to be confirmed.
Gary, Dallo, Malacia, Martinez, all 4.4 FPL assets. Any love at all?
I just don't know if you're going to get the clean sheets from them. And then I know at 4.4 you can probably have them sat there, but I think because it's Man United, it's 4.4. I think people would always be tempted to start them. There's no real evidence yet that the clean sheets are back. We've only kept one this season, I think. Yeah, 1 in 4. I think if you want to take a punt on one of them as a 4.4 slot, as to rotate with, another cheap defender or a midfielder, I don't think it's the worst option. But I mean, you look at the Brighton guys at around that level as well. They're probably
well, they're more expensive now. They've kind of all gone to 4.6. Really.
Yeah, but
4.5.
But for 0.2, but you would assume Brighton probably end up with more clean sheets than us this season. I think
that's a big statement.
Well, is it? I mean, they had more than us last season. I would have thought they're more than us this season. I'm not saying you can't go for them. I think I'd hold on a bit. I mean, Leicester away. Well, we'll combine for tonight, can they? Arsenal. You're probably not looking for a clean sheet there, are you? And again, I think like you highlighted in pre-season, our fixtures never really get easy, do they? So if there was a point where you go, we'll probably keep 4 clean sheets in 5 there, I could have one stashed on my bench. But I don't know if that run's ever going to come.
No, there is no clear massive run like you had last year around about game week 14. There isn't that. You look now, you go Arsenal, Palace, Leeds, then it's City. Okay, it's Everton, or then it's Newcastle, Tottenham, Chelsea, West Ham, Villa, and then we're finished.
So you might be buying one there. I mean, there's games there you'd probably want to bench your 4.4 defender for. you know, then there's games there where you, on paper, I mean, that run you just said there on paper, you might be looking at 2 clean sheets there. And yeah, I mean, 4.4 million on those 3, you can take a gamble on it, but I don't think it's the worst idea, but I think you're best off swerving it and looking at the Brightons or the, you know, some of the other team. You know, I mean, Saliba's only 4.7, is he? Ben White, you know, even, you know, I know Arsenal's fixtures stiffen up as well, but I think because of the options in that 4.5-ish range, I'd be hard pressed to definitively advise to go for United player, even if I don't think it's the worst idea.
Marcus Rashford, 6.3.
No.
Wow, that was emphatic.
He's just not. He starts the season. I mean, he scored a good goal against Liverpool, but he still doesn't look at it. It's been over a year now. He was
good against Liverpool, mate. What is that?
I don't know, but he was non-existent on Saturday, wasn't he? And he was awful in the first 2 matches. Fair enough against Liverpool. I think he had 5 shots and looked a bit livelier. But I mean, 6.3 again. It's not, again, you're not spending a lot of money on it. It might be worth a gamble, but, you know, Adam's just spoken about Martinelli. I know Martinelli's price has risen, but Martinelli's still only 6.5, is he?
6.4.
6.4.
6.4 then. So for 0.1, you're going off Martinelli, who's in red hot form and who's been sort of gradually building up and looks to have added end product to his game. So certainly from an outsider's perspective anyway. And you've got Rashford, who's been in a slump for over a year, and fair enough, got a good goal against Liverpool, but, you know, they didn't kick on, you know, then they go from against Southampton. He didn't look a fantasy asset, and he didn't look a good player either again. So I think, again, with Rashford, you hang fire on that. And if you see the form, you know, but the other thing is, if Anthony, you know, you don't even know if Rashford's going to be in the team now, because we've just spoke about Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Is he going to? He's not going to sit on the bench every week. Anthony's coming for £100 million. You know, I think Sancho's had a decent start, but again, not great. I think you leave Rashford for now, and if you see them flickers for 2-3 matches, then you could gamble on it. But there's just too many other better players out there at a similar price, I think.
When they've just priced Anthony up at 7.5 million, which
just come in, is it? Well spotted, Adam.
Yeah, I think so.
Thoughts on that, Gary?
Again, you'd have to see him in the team, wouldn't you? I mean, 7.5. I mean, you're in that. Well, we've all spoken about the 8 million range, so there's probably no point doing that again. But there's a lot of good players in that range, and, you know, everything I've just said about Rashford applies to Anthony. Is he going to get in the team straight away? The fixtures never get great, do they? I think again, that's the definite wait and see that. Because even if he gets in the team, I think last season for Ajax in the league, it was 8 goals and 4 assists. So even if he replicated that in the Premier League, it's not earth-shattering, is it? And the chances are he won't replicate that. So I think that's a definite wait and see. I'm surprised he's come in that high, if I'm honest.
Yeah, that was my first thought as well. It seems a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, without seeing more, you couldn't get him in over Martinelli at the moment. I don't mean, or even arguably even Rashford until you've seen something. Non-FPL question before we finish, Gary. Just your thoughts on Casamiro signing?
Yeah, I think in the short term, very good signing. It should be an instant improvement to a really weak area of our side. Should have the character and the personality to help other people. So yeah, I think in the short term, a very good signing. Whether in 2-3 years, when we've got someone on £350,000 a week, it'll be 32, 33, how that will look. But our wage bill isn't a massive problem at the minute. I think we've got the lowest wages to turnover ratio in the league. So we have got a bit of space on the wage bill. So it's not a massive issue at the minute. And if he fancies it and he wants to be a Man United player, then it should be a good signing. It can go wrong, but any signing can go wrong. But I mean, his personality and his skill set it'll raise that midfield.
I think it's a good signing.
Yeah, and if in 2 years it's a problem, well, unfortunately, United's been in a short-term mode for, well, probably since we got Mourinho in.
That team needs a bastard in there.
Yeah, it does. It needs
He's capable of being one, basically.
Yeah, and it needs a short, sharp impact like a Conte would have done, I think. It needs one of them to make it, you can focus on long-term planning all you want, but in the short-term impact, we've got to get a shortcut to being a top 4 team again. And Casamiro could help us do that. And if it means that there's no more McTominay in the team and there's no more Fred in the team, it can only be a good thing.
And the Glazers? Where do you sit on it?
Well, same as I've said on every time I've been on. We spent £200 million this summer, which is a good transfer window by any reckoning. But again, they only spend money when we have a bad season. They never spend them. If we finish second this season, which we won't obviously, but if we do, we won't spend another 200 million to go on again. It always seems to be we spend a lot of money when we finish sixth, and we react to things. But them spending the 200 million, and that isn't why United fans don't like the Glazers. No, there's not one Man United fan who thinks that the Glazers haven't spent money on players. They've spent it poorly, but that's one argument to it. But the reason people don't want the Glazers at the club is that they've rinsed billions of pounds out of that club, having never put a penny in. They're just leeches. They've not. That's $1.5 billion. There's still debt on the club. They bought a club to put it in debt. Debt with no assets. They've not improved Old Trafford. So people. I know people say, "Oh, why do United fans? Why do they care?" Blah blah blah. But that could happen to any club. It could happen to any club that your club that was previously well ran and had a good pot of money in it. That could happen to anyone. A leverage buyout, and having put no money into the club, they now are in a position to heap debt onto the club, make us pay the interest on it, and also take billions of pounds in dividends out. And fair enough, they spend money on players, but we should be spending money on players. We've still got one of the biggest turnovers in the world. Every team spends money on players. We spend it poorly, which is another subject, but it's not a good enough thing saying, well, they've bought players with it. They've never put a penny into that club, taken billions out, and people can't understand why they don't want the Glazers there. It's not about, oh, they spent £80 million on Anthony. It's not relevant, because they'll take millions out this year. They'll leave the club in debt. Old Trafford's a mess. It's a wider issue than, oh, well, we spend a lot of money on players. We should be spending money on players. Every top team spends money on players, don't they? We're not alone in that. So yeah, the quicker they're gone. But the other thing is, they aren't going to go. They can have all the protests. We can have Jim Radcliffe pretending he wants to buy the club. They aren't going to sell that club because it's just easy money for them. They don't have to do anything for it. They don't have to achieve anything for it. They're not interested in achieving things for that team. They're happy with Tampa Bay Buccaneers being the best team and get Tom Brady on mad money and all the rest of it. They're not interested in that team, but they will never sell it unless someone comes up with, what, 4 or 5 billion quid? Jim Radcliffe.
Keep going, possibly.
Well, yeah. So, and they keep saying, oh, all these people want to buy it. If these people wanted to buy it, they'd put an offer in. These deals don't take, when Man City got bought, that got bought overnight. If people have got the money and they want to buy it and the Glazers want to sell, that deal can be done today.
It's the same thing when there was the rumours about Daniel Ek, the Spotify owner, buying
Precisely,
Arsenal.
yeah.
And I think there's quite a lot of parallels both on and off the pitch between Arsenal and Man United. It's
definitely, yeah. Definitely.
There's, even though the Kroenkes don't perhaps have the same kind of, is it uncharitable to use the term leeching? I don't know, taking money out of the club. Like, Arsenal spent a lot of money, sure, but a lot of that is based off loans that Kroenke has effectively given to Arsenal, and there's no idea on the repayment schedule of it. There's no kind of insight into what the terms are, the interest rates, or anything like that. And I think there's also a lot of like my issue is like, if you want to look at it purely from a sporting perspective, is that at Arsenal for a long time there was a real lack of sporting accountability. Like, sure, we were spending money, but there was no sort of oversight onto how it was being spent. Agents or intermediaries who may have been benefiting from how it was being spent. If you look at Nicolas Pepe, there's kind of a lot of that. Their accountability over kind of the manager, like Kroenke was perfectly happy just to kind of hang Arsenal out, or Arsene Wenger, sorry, out to dry for a long time and essentially kind of leave him the rope to hang himself with. And I think there's a lot of, at least from an outside perspective, I see kind of a lot of that going on at Man United as well. And then if you look on the pitch, the case of just a need for almost a complete refresh. Like, you've got the Ronaldo situation is a little bit similar to how Arsenal were with Aubameyang in January, where it might just get to the point where you just need to kind of pay him to leave, really, because he becomes a wage that you can't justify benching and a character that won't really put up with it.
Yeah, definitely. But at least we've won the last 2 Super Bowls between us, Adam. So there is that.
Oh, no, there we go. USA.
Clash of the Super Bowl. Love it. Cheers, guys. Really, really enjoyed that. Quite a long one, but thank you. I think it's well worth covering all that. Before we finish, Gary, prediction first for Leicester this evening.
We will win 2-1.
And Sunday?
Well, I've just thought, I don't think I've ever predicted us to win on one of these Clash of Correspondents, and we've never won when I've done one.
You can't never have predicted you to win.
I don't think I have. So top of the league, Arsenal coming in. I think we'll win 1-0 with a dodgy Bruno Fernandes VAR penalty. I'll go 1-0 United in a dreadful game.
Adam?
I can't disagree with that too much, to be honest. If I'm going on head, I think we should win 2-1. But equally, if we went there and kind of managed to, if we went there and it was an awful game and United scored a kind of 90th minute winner from Ronaldo off the bench in a corner, I wouldn't be too surprised, because that just seems to happen to us at Old Trafford.
Yeah, tough call, because I think if both teams play at their maximum, I think Arsenal win at the moment. But I think if United play with the intensity they played against Liverpool, it could be overwhelming if they can do that again. So I'm going to be the bold job on this one. I'm going to sit on the fence and say 1-1. Adam, you're coming back on during the international break ahead of the North London derby, because we just like being sadistic with each other. And one of the things I'm keen to think about going into that period is what we do with these Arsenal assets coming into a really difficult run of fixtures, because you've had it one way, it's potentially about to go the other. And it'd be interesting to see what people do with the likes of Martinelli, Jesus, brilliant value, but should they be escaped from? I'm interested to speak about that to you in a few weeks. Gary, where can everyone follow you on the bird at, mate?
That is my cat playing.
Good man. And yourself, Adam?
At 352.
Brilliant. By the way, it's now known as Curse of the Correspondents after Bournemouth sacking of Scott Parker earlier this week. And that brings me nicely onto next week's podcast, which is Leicester City versus Aston Villa with Aaron Lagor and Lee Jackson. I believe Brendan Rodgers and Steven Gerrard might be in a race with each other at the moment. We have suggested a wife/managerial swap. That's your COTC for you next Thursday. FPL Irons, Luke Boarer will be joining me for the Game Week 5 review podcast tomorrow. Just leaves me to say thanks again to Gary and to Adam. Cue music, please, man child.